3, 2, 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Nittany No Huddle Podcast.
We are back with another episode of the Nittany No Huddle Podcast. I'm here in studio once again with Coach Devin, and we got Zach on the line, still on his porch. We're going to do things a little differently. This is going to be our top 25 and pick'ems for week 5. So we'll throw it over to Devin if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
You can start with your top 25. I'll go ahead and get the graphic on.
All right. So only 2 big changes, only 2 new teams this week. Didn't move a lot around. At 25, I have Missouri ? That's how I sent our picks in this week because I really don't know who to put at 25. So I put Missouri just 4-0, win over K-State, a decent win over Memphis. I think is going to be a kind of decent win out of the American. I don't really know what to think of Missouri, but hey, that's cool. 24, Florida, who I think is not any good, but the win over Tennessee is boosting them up. They beat Charlotte 22-7. I mean, that is not good. So I couldn't move them at all. 23, I have James Madison. It's the hot take. I have James Madison. Here's why. One,
are we ranking our favorite presidents, or what's going on here?
It's definitely not my favorite president. Never mind. No comment. James Madison, partially as a middle finger to the NCAA for their just completely asinine rules as far as moving up from FCS to FBS and being ineligible for bowl games for however many years. It's stupid. Who cares? If they're going to move up, they can be eligible for bowl games. They're 4-0, and they have 3 road wins. I think that's pretty high quality. Are the road wins great teams? Virginia, Utah State, and Troy. So no. But still, for them to go on the road for 3 of their first 4 games, I think it's pretty impressive.
I don't know. That sounds like an Alabama non-conf right there.
Better than Georgia's. It's probably, right? I would say right on par at least.
Yeah.
And they're on the road. So to move a little quicker, I have UCLA down to 22. I didn't penalize them very much because they only lost by 7 points. Oregon State, they also lost. They're down to 21. Ole Miss also lost. They're down to 20. So that's my little stretch of teams that lost. 19, I have Maryland all the way up to 19. Is Maryland the 19th best team in the country? I don't know. But they're clearly the 4th best team in the Big Ten. I think it's clear that they are the 4th best team in the Big Ten, which again just shows how bad the Big Ten West is. 18, I have LSU. 17, I have Miami. I think Miami might be actually good. And I'm still not sure, but I think they might actually be good. Are they bringing the U back? 16, I have Alabama. I wish I didn't. I wish they were out because I just hate them. But also, they beat Ole Miss. I think that's a pretty quality win. 15, Duke, who has a huge game this week that we'll get into in our pick'ems. Kind of that college football playoff driver's seat, man. If they can find a way to win a couple games. They have a couple big games left, and if they can find a way to win them, that's big. 14, UNC. 13, I dropped Notre Dame down to 13. Go ahead, anybody in the comments, roast me. I said Notre Dame would beat Ohio State by 3 scores. I said Ryan Day would get fired. He'd be crying after the game, which he was. It's Ohio versus the world. Ohio versus the world.
All right, calm down.
So annoying. So I hate Ohio State. So Notre Dame's at 13. I don't know what are we doing? Washington State up to 12, big win over the Beavers. They now have 2 quality wins, I think. So that's impressive on their part. Oklahoma all the way up to 11. I think Oklahoma has shown some incredible defense this year, and the fact that they are actually playing a little bit of defense has me intrigued for that Red River rivalry. We can't say that. The Red River rivalry. We'll have that in a couple weeks here. I think that's going to be a great game. I have Florida State all the way down to 10. I dropped them from number 6 because I think Clemson is trash. I really do. And for them to, again, now 2 weeks in a row, yes, they won on the road, and that's impressive, and I'll give them that. So just like James Madison has 3 road wins, Florida State now has 2 road wins and a neutral site win. That's an impressive resume, except for the teams they've beaten. that BC is one of the worst teams in college football. And Clemson is not good. They're just not. Dabo is done. The dynasty is dead. Alliteration. 9, Utah. They moved up a couple spots. 8, Oregon. Just boat raced Colorado. To no one's surprise, right? I don't think anyone's really surprised by that.
Facebook comments.
Maybe Coach Prime was surprised. USC I stayed at 7. Washington, I moved up 2 spots to 6. I think Washington arguably is the most impressive team in all of college football. I don't think they're the best team, but I think through 4 weeks that they've been the most impressive with what they're doing. Michael Penix is clearly the Heisman favorite, and he still didn't get to the end zone in 2020. Michigan at number 5, dropped them a couple spots, but as I dropped Michigan 2 spots, even though they played arguably their best game of the season, simply because who passed them. So Ohio State moves up to number 4. It's them versus the world, and they are up to number 4 simply by winning at Notre Dame. Penn State, I think, has the best defense in college football right now. So they're at number 3. To beat Iowa the way they did, I'll take it. And then my top 2 stayed the same. I have Georgia at 2, Texas at 1. Neither one of them struggled this week. Georgia still was only up like 14 points at halftime. Georgia is so weird to me.
They have only scored 14 total points in first quarters.
It's wild. It's wild to me what Georgia is doing, but they're just find a way to win, and they're not going to lose a game. Like they're not going to lose a game until the SEC championship, and if they do, so I still have them at 2. But Texas looked really good. Baylor is really, really bad, I think. So they should have beat them by a lot, and they did. So there you go. I got a little fired up there.
And Ohio versus World, that includes this podcast.
Yeah,
we are against you.
We are against you.
So you got at least one right.
We won't be filming in Ohio anytime soon.
All right, Zach, do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. All right. So I finally bought onto the September Maryland hype. I have them at 25. Luckily for them, this is one of those years where there's 5 Saturdays in September, so it'll continue for another week. I think they have Indiana, so I expect them to be 5-0. They got a huge game assuming they can get past that, they have a huge game with Ohio State coming up. So it'll be interesting to see all of the hype in the Maryland train fall to the wayside. I've got Kansas State back in at number 24. I just kind of struggled to fill out the back end of this. I think K-State's a pretty solid team. I'm not going to hold them. I'm not going to penalize them too much for losing at Missouri. I've got Fresno State at number 23. That's kind of my James Madison pick where Coach Devin has somebody at 23. I think Fresno State might be in the driver's seat for the Group of 5 automatic bid to the New Year's 6 playoffs. I've got Kansas I got Ole Miss at 22. I'm not going to punish them too much. I thought they looked okay against Alabama. They have that nice road win against Tulane, holding them up. Kansas at 21. I really like Kansas. Kansas has a huge game against Texas this week. It's at Texas. I don't necessarily expect them to win. We may see them actually as somebody's super dog when we get to that. I think they have enough offense. They're going to give Texas a lot of trouble. I actually think that's going to be a really good game. I've got Missouri up at 20. I'm not totally bought in on the hype there, but they've got that nice win over K-State. And I agree with Coach Devin. I think that Memphis win, that might be the best team in the American. That's a decent little non-con win in a neutral site. Oregon State at 19. I love Oregon State. Couldn't penalize them too much. I really like Washington State, which is sort of part of the rationale behind not penalizing them. I've got Miami at 18. They got that nice win over Texas A&M. They played Miami, Ohio, Temple, and Bethune-Cookman in their other games. So I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for like a second.
Is that a college? I thought it was a monastery or something. Go ahead.
Maybe it is. I don't know. But I'm just kind of waiting for that second. I need to see it to believe it, but then I also need to see it to believe. I need to see it again to believe it. That's kind of where I'm at with Miami. I have North Carolina at 17. I've got Duke at 16. I've got a run on ACC teams there. I think any 3 of those teams, given Clemson's start to the season, obviously Florida State's in the driver's seat, but any 3 of those teams can very easily find themselves in the mix, and they all play each other. So it's going to be fascinating. For once, it's actually going to be interesting to watch the ACC down the stretch. The last 10 years, it's been kind of boring, and it's been Clemson from the jump. So I'm actually excited to watch the ACC play itself out. I think they've got a number of teams that can get in the playoff hunt, starting with Duke
Right in
this
the
week,
stretch.
Notre Dame.
Has it
I
been
have
a decade since Florida State won their natty?
20. Yeah, that was 2013 with Jameis Winston.
Oh, we're old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
All
I mean,
right, sorry, go ahead.
Clemson. It's kind of crazy to think about how much Clemson has dominated that. I mean, they're 0-2 in the ACC right now. I would wager that they haven't had 2 ACC losses since probably at least 2013 or earlier. Most years they have 0, and sometimes they'll lose 1. But
They did lose to
there
Pitt
were
that one time.
they did lose to Pitt in 2016 and won the national title that year. And the same year Penn State won the Rose Bowl. So there was something about Pitt that just like you had to lose to Pitt to unlock something, I guess. But
Well, we lost
in any
the Rose
event,
Bowl, but yeah.
well, yeah. So then my next 3 teams, I've got to run on teams that I think they all have a loss, but I think they're showing something in different ways. Alabama had a nice bounce back win over Ole Miss. I know it wasn't pretty, it wasn't great, but I think they kind of showed the formula to what type of team they need to look like to have success with the quarterback issues that they have. I've got LSU at 14. I was a little discouraged with their showing. They really were in a dogfight with Arkansas at home, and I don't think Arkansas is bad, but it was not the type of showing that you wanted to see from LSU if you thought that they were going to get back in the national title hunt. Notre Dame at 13. We could probably do a whole podcast on the ending of that game. I think the general picture takeaway for me is that Notre Dame they're in the mix, right? If you lump the teams into the category of they can play with anybody or they can't, I think Notre Dame proved that they can probably play with anybody and really should have won that game, obviously. And so I think they're up there. The nice thing for them and Coach Devin had them in the playoffs, so somebody was a believer, and they're not out of it yet. And the reason they're not is because they've still got Duke, they've still got the Clemson game, and they still got USC. So they're still. I mean, this Ohio State game was if they get that, that's quite the feather in the cap. But I don't think they're out of it yet because there's enough decent teams left on their schedule that if they run the table, I think they're at a minimum they're going to be in the mix. So that was Notre Dame at 13. I have USC all the way down at 12. I'm still not a believer. They gave up 28 points to Arizona State team that I think might be the worst team in the Pac-12, and they didn't look great. And I don't know if they just play defense just so Caleb Williams can pad his stats in the fourth quarter when other quarterbacks are out of games. I don't know, but similar to Miami, I'm just kind of in like I need to see it to believe it, and I think if you put USC on the field right now with Utah or Oregon or Washington or any of those other, maybe even Washington State, these other teams in the Pac-12, I've seen more out of those teams right now. So I'm just more of a believer in them than I am USC. But obviously with Caleb Williams, like they can play with anybody and they can score on anybody. So
I'll say this right now: if USC gets to the college football playoff, I will paint my fingers for one of the podcasts. That's what Caleb Williams.
I understand, but like that might happen. So
they're
it's
trash.
a bold
Trash.
I like
statement.
it. So I just mentioned Washington State. I have them at 11. I love Washington State. If you watch any of that game with Oregon State, they look really, really good. I think Oregon State is a really good defensive team, and Cam Ward just picked them apart. He was 19 of 20 in the first half. Hot take right now, my Heisman winner is Cam Ward, quarterback, Washington State. Let me give you a quick little stat line. He is 106 for 142 on the year, 75. That's a 75% completion percentage. He's thrown for 1,400 yards. He has 13 touchdowns, and he has 0 interceptions. And that includes games against a Wisconsin team that's pretty solid and an Oregon State. So it's not like they've played just cupcakes. So
I think you're reading my NCAA 14 Wazoo rebuild.
That was just
That's
probably
what it looks like.
That was one game for you. You scheduled FCS Southwest. All right. So moving on, my top 10. And other than not having USC in it, I think we probably all have the same top 10, but just shuffled around differently. I'm going to echo Coach Devin. I really like what Oklahoma is doing. I mean, it's hard to overstate how bad they were defensively last year. And I don't care what you say. Cincinnati's they're not great offensively, whatever. SMU's not great offensively. Tulsa. Just the fact that Cincinnati, they won 20-6. That's a huge, huge jump from last year. And I think they were pretty good offensively last year. So we're not, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're not actually saying we need to be elite defensively. I think you're just saying we need to be like competent, maybe middle of the road. And with that
Present.
offense, they're going to be in the hunt. Like we need to be on the field, like tackling people and at a bare minimum. So they've looked really good. I think Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback, is really good and he's healthy. He was not healthy last year. And we'll see how that shakes out. The Red River game is obviously coming up. And I think, honestly, whoever wins that game, they are absolutely in the driver's seat to get to the playoffs, because you look around the Big 12, and K-State, I think, is solid. It could maybe beat somebody. Texas has Kansas this week. I think if Texas gets through Kansas this week and then Oklahoma the following week, there's just not. We usually love to pump up the Big 12, but I think it's pretty bad this year. I think we've got a
dark horse. West Virginia, they beat TCU this weekend.
They'll be 2-0. Texas Tech was everybody's darling coming into the season, and West Virginia really handled them nicely. I don't know. I don't know if some teams are just better than expected, or if the teams that were expected to be good just aren't. Oklahoma State has been awful. I don't know. So anyway, Oklahoma at 10, got off track a little bit, and now my run on Pac-12 teams. I've got Oregon at 9, Utah at 8, Washington at 7. I really like all three of these teams, and I think the fact that I have them where I have them, given how much I like them, is just a testament to how really good I think the top 10 is this year. I think in some years you have kind of like your 1 and your 2 and your 3, maybe, or your top 4 or 5, and then after that you're just kind of like filling in who's the flavor of the week to fill out the back of the top 10. And this year I always say on this podcast, I'm a big resume guy, and that's how I like to rank. I don't like to just say, well, Georgia was good last year, so let's go with Georgia. Utah has a home win over a Florida team that obviously all of a sudden looks a lot better. They've got a road win at Baylor. Baylor's not great, but it's still a road win. And then they just shut down UCLA. Their defense has been phenomenal. If they get Cam Rising back and get any type of offense, they could be really, really good. Washington, to echo Coach Devin's point, probably the most impressive team in the country, and probably the most slept on team, I would say, at this point, at the top of the polls. But I look at the top 6 and I say, like, who do I jump them over? Penn State, frankly, probably ought to be higher, but I have them at 6. I've got Georgia at 5. Georgia's maybe the one team from my perspective of, like, I like to rank based on resume. They're the one team that, looking at it, I probably should have lower, just because they really haven't done anything yet. I've got Michigan at 4. I'm somewhat higher on Rutgers than I think most people are. So that was, for me, I thought Michigan had a really solid game against Rutgers. Again, it wasn't sexy. Nobody's going to give them a ton of credit for that. But Rutgers, I think, is, to Devin's point earlier about Maryland being the 4th best team in the Big Ten, I think there's an argument to be made that Rutgers might be the 5th or 6th best team in the Big Ten. And they've, I don't know how you would rebut that, because nobody in the West, I don't think there's anybody in the West that you could put in front of them. But so that leaves me with my final 3. Ohio State, they obviously have to move up. A road win at Notre Dame, who I have ranked 13, that got to count for a lot. Florida State, you got it number 2. I'm not super impressed with them, but again, on the resume, they have a really good resume, and I am actually higher on Clemson than Coach Devin is. So I don't think Clemson's a bad team. I think that's a quality road win that they had there in a stadium that they haven't won in quite some time. And then finally, Texas, number 1. Obviously, that Bama win is still the best win of the season. I've got to keep them up there. I think, as I said earlier, I think they may struggle this week, but they're my number 1 team for now.
Yeah, I can't really disagree. I do agree with your top 10. I feel like any one of those teams could be in the playoffs. So I'll pull up my top 25.
I'd say maybe even the top 12. I think out of the top 12, really, nobody in there would really like shock me to make it to the playoffs. Just how they're playing right now, I should say.
Yeah.
Through 4 games. I think out of the top 12, I think there's clear teams that are better than other ones. But Washington State, or you have USC down at 12, like that wouldn't surprise me at all for them to make the playoffs. So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. So my top 25, I got Florida at 25. I really didn't know who to put there. So I was like, Gator Nation, I guess. I kept the Beavers at 24. I was riding high on them, getting flamed online relentlessly now because of it. But, when you compare the teams they've played to USC's similar opponents, San Jose State being one of them, I was like, oh, okay, Oregon State is essentially USC North, but not the case, I guess. So I was wrong. 23, begrudgingly, I have Syracuse and their stupid dome at 23. They are undefeated, and hell, they could very easily win the ACC. So
Big game this week.
huge game this week. I kept UCLA in the top 25. I got UCLA at 22. I know they did lose to Utah, but I think Utah's a good team, so I have them there. 21, I brought back Alabama. You guys can stop yelling at me online. I got it. Yeah, sure. I guess they're a top 25 team. I don't know. They're Alabama. They still have horrible O-line issues and quarterback issues, but I bumped Fresno up to 20. Probably way too high, but they're winning, so keep them there. 19, I got Kansas, and you'll see when the Super Dogs come out. I think I'm going to take Kansas, so be warned. I don't know if I'm first, but I'm just skipping ahead. I don't know. 18, I got the fourth best team in the Big Ten East and West combined. That's Maryland. I mean, Baby Tua, I don't know how to say his first name.
Tualia.
Yeah, so I don't know, but he very well could be, the best quarterback in the Big Ten. It wouldn't surprise me at the end of the year.
Drew
We're
Aller.
looking at that.
Drew Aller.
Possible. Not if he keeps getting pulled in third quarters.
Yeah.
Then we got the U at 17. 16, I got North Carolina. 15, I moved Washington State up there. Basically bumped them up for their big win against Oregon State, who I had very highly rated. LSU, I got 14. I don't know how I feel about LSU. I feel like they're just going to be like that one-loss team that sticks around, maybe beats Bama and goes to the SEC championship game and somehow beats Georgia. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if that happened. 13, I got Duke. Like you guys said,
Football school.
Is Duke a football school now? Maybe. Maybe they are. 12, I probably should have Oklahoma higher, to be honest. They have looked really good through 4 games, like you guys have been saying. I think when their coach moved out to the West Coast, he took their bad defense with him. So maybe this is turning a leaf for them. It wouldn't surprise me if they beat Texas and win the Big 12. So moving on, I got USC. I think we all have USC at 11.
I have them at 7.
Oh, well, you're wrong. Yeah, USC at 11. I just don't like USC. So
Yeah, I think the exact quote, Devin may be able to correct me, was, I don't understand how anybody could possibly have USC ranked ahead of Utah.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I do.
I just don't. I don't like USC, and I think their defense is going to catch up with them in one of these games. I mean, they have a gauntlet they have to go through, and some of those teams are going to absolutely punish them and not let them have the ball. And I think that's what you'll see when they have to play some of those tougher Pac-12 teams. Moving on, we got Notre Dame. I dropped them to 10. I really wanted them to beat Ohio State, and I put them at 10 specifically because that's how many players they had on the field for the last 2 plays. So shout out to Lou Holtz. You're a friend of the podcast. Come on anytime. We're anti-Ohio. Nobody talks about Ohio State, and Ryan Day being 0-2 against Michigan, but go attack an 85-year-old man. It's real tough. Really proves you're not soft. That's what I got for Notre Dame. I'm just on one right now. All right. So let me cook. All right. 9, I got Florida State. I think Florida State got lucky, and maybe that win against LSU was a fluke because I just don't think they're that good of a team. And I don't know. We'll see how the ACC pans out. Maybe they'll get it all together, but I think there's a lot of concerns. Of all the top 10 teams, they have shown some major flaws, in my opinion. 8, I got Utah. I think I dropped them down a spot or 2 from last week, but that's because I moved Oregon up. I mean, Oregon's offense, they really could have hung like 80 on Colorado this weekend if they wanted to. I mean, they absolutely dominated both sides of the ball. I mean, Bo Nix, yeah, everybody's like, he's a 6-year senior. Okay, cool. Like, he's killing it. I think he should get more props just because you're 23. He's only 23. Like, he's not that much older than some of the dudes there. So
Jordan found his
I
new
keep seeing
16
all
senior to
the-
protect this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a 6-year senior homer, That's why I always pick that attribute on NCAA where you can convince him to stay another year, make that promise. But yeah, I mean, Bo Nix, everybody's like roasting him like he replaced Cam Newton. Like, no, he didn't. It's a meme. Calm down. Like, he's not that old. All right. All right. And then we got Georgia. I'm just not convinced Georgia is the best team in the country or even top 5, really. They haven't proved it. Like I said earlier, they can't score early or they haven't shown the ability to yet. And they just really haven't put together a complete performance. Yeah, everybody's like, they're 2 times national champs. Well, no, they're not. That team, half that team's in the NFL. Half that team plays for the Eagles. All right. Like that's not the same team. I don't know how much more clear we have to be. Your quarterback's in rehab. Like, it's not the same team. So, like, get off your high horse, win some big games, which you probably won't because you don't have any big games on your schedule. Like, I think Georgia's the 6th through 4 games is the 6th best team so far. I got Michigan at 5. I did drop them down just because they did struggle with Rutgers. And if anybody who actually watched that game, they had a pick 6 in the 4th quarter or late 3rd quarter, completely changed the game. That would have been arguably a 1-score game. Now, I get that's part of the game, making big plays, turnovers, that sort of thing. But, like, the final score did not reflect how close that game was for the big team up north. And then I got Ohio State. I don't want to put Ohio State 4th, but you beat Notre Dame on the road, even if they only had 10 players on the field the last 2 plays, which I still don't know how that's possible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Somebody be getting fired, I think. But, that's how it goes. They find a way to win the big games. And, yeah, maybe I am anti-Ohio State, but that's just how it is. 3, I got Texas. They put together a good win this weekend. And then I kept my top 2 the same. I still think we're the 2nd best team in the nation. Been getting roasted online. And then Washington has just been absolutely killing it. I don't know what else to say. Like, go watch Washington play and tell me that they're not great. Like,
I know. They're crushing it, man. I agree.
Until somebody can slow them down, like all those points this weekend against Cal, that was all second string. Like, they scored like 30 points in like the first quarter.
Yeah.
I think it was like 31-0 in the first quarter. It's crazy. But that's all I got for this segment. We'll have another segment later this week where we'll just talk college football and I'll get all my feelings out about Ryan Day. But for now, this is my top 25. Any final thoughts, Zach?
No, I think, like I said, I think we all kind of see that there's like a cluster of 10 or 11 or maybe 12 teams that are sort of in that top group. And then for the most part, I think we have them in the same groupings. I think USC is one where we've got some differences. And then obviously Florida State is the one where I think I'm more inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt based on the resume than you guys are. But for the most part, I think we have teams in sort of the same spots.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's move on. Sorry, I'm a little distraction. I'm trying to pull up our pick'ems. We'll just run through our pick'ems real quick. And we pretty much talked all the top 25 teams. So most of that is covered here. So we got Louisville at NC State. I got NC State. Zach, you got Louisville. Devin's got NC State. Zach, why you being different? Just to run up the score on us or what?
Yeah, I think Louisville's had a pretty good start to the year. I think NC State's been okay, not great, but okay. They had a decent close loss to Notre Dame, but mainly Louisville's favorite. I think they're a little bit better. I think NC State's obviously at home, but I'm a big Jeff Brom fan. I think he did nice things at Purdue, and I think he's gonna do some nice things at Louisville too, where he doesn't have some of the big dogs like the Penn States and the Ohio States and the Michigans in the Big Ten. But this is like, for me, a pure toss-up game. I would not be shocked at all if NC State wins.
Okay. Moving on. Same thing. Devin and I got Utah. You got Oregon State. I know that's not who you really wanted to pick.
Yeah, it pains me because nobody's been a bigger Utah homer than me, but they've been. Here's my thought process: if Cam Rising doesn't come back, like it's going to catch up to them at some point. They have been getting absolutely no offense. That UCLA game, they had I think they had 200 yards of offense. Like
Yikes.
you can only ask your defense to just dominate teams for so long, and Oregon State can really run the ball. So I think Utah's been. I think they've benefited from playing teams that just have not been great offensively. Florida is very one-dimensional. UCLA, the freshman quarterback making his first real road start. Oregon State's a team that can play, and their back's up against the wall now because in the Pac-12, they can't afford to start 0-2 if they want to be competitive. So I just think it's like a make it or break it type game for Oregon State, and they're at home. I just don't know what the situation is with Utah at quarterback.
Yeah, I just think Utah takes care of business. Oregon State broke my heart this week, so I'm off the Beaver train. Moving on, Florida at Kentucky. I got the Gators. You guys got UK because I always mess it up when I text you guys. I honestly haven't watched any Kentucky football or basketball, so I don't know. I got Gators in the top 25. I was like, I'm just gonna roll with it. I don't know if you got any input.
I don't know a lot either. I don't think Florida's good. I just don't. So I figured I'd go Kentucky, hoping that Zach would maybe go the other way. I don't know, but I just feel like Kentucky is always good for that one win where you're like, oh crap, is Kentucky actually good? And then they lose to
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Vanderbilt. It's a great example. So I feel like this is that game where Kentucky wins it. They get to 5-0. Suddenly they're in the top 15 rankings of all these places, and then they lose to some nobody next week. So I feel like Kentucky does that every year, at least the last few years. So
it's definitely what it feels like.
Yeah. So
all right, move on. We all got Texas A&M. Not going to cover that. I could care less if either team wins, to be honest. Moving on, I'm on the Syracuse hype train. Let's go. Carrier Dome. I'm all in. I think that game's it's at Syracuse. Yeah. So
in the Dome.
Zach, you got Clemson. Just got to be different.
The dynasty might be dead, but they're still better than Syracuse. I
disagree.
I think everybody's selling a little too hard on Clemson. They have a better roster. They really should have won that Florida State game. So we'll see. Hey, if nothing else, this if you pull up the slate of games again, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of the 8. Jordan and I have a different pick, and 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 8. Devin and I have a different pick. So either my lead is going to balloon on somebody this week, or I'm going to come back to the pack. So if nothing else, there's some nice.
Yeah, or we all split them.
Yeah, that's true. But
nobody wins.
I will believe in Syracuse if they win this game. I don't believe in them yet, I guess is where I'm at.
All right. Fair enough. We got Illinois at Purdue. I got Purdue, though. So you guys both have Illinois. Are you just hoping that they win so Penn State looks better? I feel
Amen.
like that's what that was.
Yep. That's all I know.
Purdue's been kind of snaking it this year, too. They're just finding new ways to lose, and they haven't looked very good. But this is a total flip it, pick 'em game for me because I don't think either team is that great, and Purdue's at home. I think Illinois is probably a little bit better, maybe a little bit tougher defensively, maybe a little bit better at quarterback, maybe not, but Purdue's at home. So I don't know. It's kind of an ugly game. Frankly, I was struggling to find the 8th game this week based on our spread rules. There's a lot of interesting games this week with spreads that were way too high. So I just threw a Big Ten game in there just to give us a Big Ten game.
There we go. And then we got 13 LSU at Ole Miss. Devin and I both got LSU. Is Ole Miss? They were competitive with Alabama, but
yeah,
I feel like LSU is just gonna keep winning. I don't know. Just my hunch.
It's a battle of one-loss teams that both didn't look very good in their loss, and I'm not really sure what to make of either one of them. And Ole Miss is at home. And I don't know. I watched parts of the Arkansas game, the LSU Arkansas game last week, and I just was not super impressed. So I don't know. I do expect this to be a decent game, a pretty solid game, and probably a close one. But going Ole Miss. We'll see how it shakes out.
Yeah,
Riding the
and
lane
then-
train.
Yeah, lane train. All right. And then we all three have number 11 Notre Dame beating 17 Duke in Duke. I
Best
mean,
game of the week.
yeah,
Probably.
I think Notre Dame is just, I mean, they're a good football team. And like you saw, if they can compete with Ohio State, I think they should be able to take care of Duke. No problem. But maybe Duke is good. I don't know. College
Yeah,
football.
I wanted to pick.
like,
I wanted to pick Duke on that one. I think Notre Dame's very solid defensively. I mean, I know we've kind of mocked Ohio State offensively, but to hold them to basically 10 points until that final drive, that's pretty good. And I think they can really run the ball. They ran the ball pretty solidly against Ohio State. I think there's too much weaponry there for Duke, but I agree. I think it's going to be a really good game. College game day going to Durham for the first time ever, which is kind of interesting. But I was a little worried, Jordan, on the when you pulled the graphic up that you had my Notre Dame pick in blue. It's like I was a little worried what was going on there, but
I did that on purpose. I knew he was going to call it out.
He definitely he stressed him out for a second.
But yeah,
Did you
so-
notice the LSU one too?
no, I didn't. I actually didn't catch that one, but
yeah. So that's our pick'ems for this week. We'll go into Super Dogs. Who's actually first?
Jordan, you're up.
Okay. I am taking Kansas to cover the spread and beat Texas. You heard it here first. They're going to beat Texas, horns down, even though I have them third in my rankings. But I just think, like we've been talking all year, Kansas has really good offense, and I think it's going to be a shootout. And I think it'll be close, but I think Kansas is going to find a way to win. I forget what the spread is, like minus 16 or something.
It was like 16 or 17, I think, is where I saw it.
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm next or are
No.
you next? Yeah.
I think I'm actually next. But if you have yours lined up, go ahead, Devin.
I'm between two. So if you're next, I'll let you go just because I don't want to steal
All right.
yours and break the rules
So-
of the game.
so I'm
Do you know
gonna
what the
go-
standings are? Is it still it's what 3-2-0?
I think
I have 3 points. I know
I
that.
think I have 4 points now.
Oh,
Because I think I got the last two spreads, right? I don't remember who I picked last week. I had the BYU spread I got,
well, BYU lost.
no, 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
And then I
we'll figure it
I don't
out.
know. I'll have to
Yeah.
go back and rewatch. I forgot.
Shame on our production assistants for not having that ready to go.
yeah, they're fired.
So if you want me to go ahead, Devin, I'm going to go and I'm going to take South Carolina plus 12.5 at Tennessee. I don't necessarily
I like
like
that.
South Carolina, and I'm not expecting them to win, but Tennessee kind of had a ho-hum win over UTSA, and they looked really bad in that Florida game, frankly. So I'm trusting Spencer Rattler to maybe get some like garbage time points to cover that spread. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was competitive. I'm not necessarily expecting South Carolina to win, but at the same time, they actually, if you recall, they beat Tennessee last year and scored like 60 points on them at the end of the year.
You did
So-
have Iowa covering the spread last week. I'm just saying.
Phew.
You should
wanna
lose
talk about it.
points for that.
Yeah, so I'm going South Carolina plus 12.5.
And I'm gonna go off radar here a little bit. I just called them arguably the worst team in college football, but they're getting 11.5 points at UCF. I'm gonna take the Baylor Bears, Jordan's former favorite team, who he now hates. They're getting 11.5 against UCF, which is actually a Big 12 game now, which is absolutely bonkers. But Baylor getting 11.5. I don't know.
Will they score 11.5 points?
I don't know.
Maybe.
But we're gonna see. I feel like that's my pick for this week. I also really like Houston at Texas Tech. Houston's getting 8 points in that game. That's one that is really intriguing. I'm probably gonna end up kicking myself because that one will cover, and then I picked Baylor. But Houston's that team that I feel like every week is a super dog. We're like, yeah, that's a good one, and then they
suck.
then they stop.
They're just
And
not
whenever
the
they're
one.
favored, they always win by that many points. But is Texas Tech really like terrible? I don't know.
Awesome.
Yeah, and, I mean they looked pretty good when they played Oregon too, which is
Yeah.
weird. They played their best against the best competition, and they've kind of just looked bad against Wyoming and West Virginia. But I don't know. The other game speaking of West Virginia, they're 12-point dogs at TCU.
I
And
saw that too.
I think TCU has kind of righted the ship after that Colorado loss, and frankly, I think if they played again right now, TCU would win comfortably. But that was just interesting to me with the positive momentum that West Virginia has that they're basically a 2-touchdown dog. We'll see. I think TCU definitely has more offensive firepower, but I don't know. It would be great to see West Virginia go on a run and really boost Penn State's resume.
Yeah, and maybe keep their head coach.
Get them off the hot seat.
Yeah,
if they win that game, 4-1.
We were
2-0,
talking
Big
about
yeah,
who, if Manny Diaz does leave at the end of the season, where he might land. And I suggested, if West Virginia sucks, maybe he goes there. But Devin says that'd probably be a downgrade.
I don't know if necessarily downgrade, but I don't see Manny Diaz being like, yeah, I'm going to leave a team that returns a lot of people still next year to go coach at West Virginia. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I said he's going to Clemson.
He's been quoted as saying, he's not in a rush to get back to a head job. Like, it's got to be the right fit for him.
Right.
So
Alabama.
Here's one. So there's going to be an opening in Michigan State. Who better to fill that than former defensive coordinator Mark D'Antonio? Opens up the Pitt job. I don't actually think that Manny Diaz would leave for Pitt, but I do. I'm interested to see who fills that Michigan State job, and I wouldn't be surprised if Narduzzi's on the short list. And I just think from although it's kind of a mess up there right now, I think just from like a resource standpoint and TV revenue standpoint, Michigan State's in a much better position than Pittsburgh, obviously. So I don't know. It might be. I wouldn't be shocked if Pat Narduzzi is the next coach at Michigan State.
Even though he keeps saying he's not going there.
Sparty doozy.
Well, Pitt is absolutely terrible. They're
bad. They're really bad this year.
They're atrociously bad. So, but Vayu got to play. Oh, we're gonna do a podcast. I don't want to tease what we're doing. Vayu played this weekend, so
yeah. All right, I think that's it for this show. You guys have any final thoughts?
Nope.
All right, Nittany No Huddle Nation now.
Thanks for watching the Nittany No Huddle podcast. Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Podcasts are posted weekly on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss one of our new shows.